for Mrs. Savannah Parker and guest. The cream-colored envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I finally gathered the courage to open it. The expensive paper felt heavy in my hands, almost as heavy as the memories it carried. I knew exactly who it was from. The elaborate, cursive handwriting was unmistakable. Madison, my ex-husband's new fiancée, had always been fond of making statements. I took a deep breath and broke the seal. Inside, an equally elaborate invitation confirmed my suspicions. Nathan and Madison cordially invited me to celebrate their engagement. The date was set for exactly 1 year after Nathan had left me for her, his then secretary. The timing couldn't have been more deliberate. "This is a new low, even for them," I muttered, running my fingers over the embossed letters. The invitation felt like a carefully orchestrated reminder of everything I'd lost. My 15-year marriage, my social standing, and what I'd thought was my perfect life. I still remember that rainy Thursday evening when Nathan came home later than usual. He sat me down at our dining table, the same one where we'd shared thousands of meals, dreams, and plans, and told me he'd found someone else, someone younger, someone who understood him better. The words fell from his lips like poison, destroying everything we'd built together. "It's not you, Savannah," he'd said, as if that made it better. "We've just grown apart. Madison and we connect on a different level." Madison, his 28-year-old secretary who'd always smiled too brightly at company events, who'd always lingered a little too long at his office, who'd apparently understood him better than his wife of 15 years. The following months were a blur of divorce papers, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights. I'd lost weight, lost sleep, and nearly lost myself. But something unexpected happened along the way. I found my strength, and more importantly, I found Michael. I glanced at the gold band on my left hand, so different from the ornate diamond ring Nathan had given me all those years ago. Michael hadn't just helped me heal. He'd shown me what real love looked like. As the CEO of the company where Nathan worked, he'd witnessed my ex-husband's betrayal from afar. We'd met by chance at a charity gala 6 months after my divorce, and everything changed. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Home in 20, bringing dinner. Love you." I smiled, picking up the invitation again. Madison had no idea that Michael and I had kept our relationship and subsequent marriage private for the past year. No one at the company knew, except for the board of directors. We'd wanted it that way, enjoying our happiness away from prying eyes and wagging tongues. Looking at the invitation now, I realized it wasn't just a reminder of my past. It was an opportunity. Madison and Nathan had orchestrated this evening to showcase their happiness at my expense. They expected to see the same broken woman from a year ago, perhaps still struggling to piece her life back together. I walked to my closet and pulled out the red Valentino dress I'd been saving for a special occasion. Its price tag would have made me flinch 2 years ago, but success had its perks. After the divorce, I'd channeled my pain into building my own interior design firm, and it had flourished beyond my wildest dreams. "Two can play at this game," I whispered, holding the dress against me. I checked my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back bore little resemblance to the shell of a person I'd been a year ago. My honey blonde hair was now cut in a confident bob, my green eyes held a spark that had been missing for years, and my smile, well, it was genuine. The front door opened, and Michael's familiar footsteps echoed through our home. "Savannah?" he called out. I turned, still holding the invitation. "In the bedroom?" He appeared in the doorway, tall and distinguished in his charcoal suit, carrying takeout bags that filled the room with the scent of our favorite Thai restaurant. His blue eyes caught sight of the envelope in my hand, and his expression shifted from joy to concern. "It finally came?" he asked, setting the bags down on the dresser. I nodded, handing him the invitation. They want to remind me of what I lost. Little do they know. Michael read the invitation, his jaw tightening slightly. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. That same confident smile that had first caught my attention at the gala. "Well, Mrs. Morrison," he said, using my new surname, "shall we RSVP?" In that moment, looking at my husband's knowing smile, I felt a delicious anticipation building. Madison and Nathan had intended this invitation to be their grand moment of triumph. Instead, they'd handed us the perfect opportunity to reveal our own happiness, and to show them that sometimes, losing everything is just the beginning of finding something better. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over Madison's number. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady and sure. "I think it's time we made our own statement." The week before the engagement party, Michael and I sat on our terrace, sharing a bottle of wine and memories. The evening air was warm, carrying the scent of the jasmine I'd planted when I first moved into this house, my fresh start after the divorce. "Do you remember the first time we really talked?" I asked, swirling the red wine in my glass. "At the Morrison Foundation Gala?" Michael's laugh was warm and rich. "How could I forget? You were wearing that midnight blue dress, standing alone by the fountain, looking like you wanted to be anywhere else in the world." I smiled at the memory. I hadn't wanted to attend the gala that night, but my best friend Rachel had insisted I needed to get back out there. I'd been divorced for 6 months, and while my design business was thriving, my personal life was still in shambles. I was actually planning my escape route, I admitted. Then you walked up with 2 glasses of champagne and said, "These events are much more bearable with company and bubbles." Michael finished, reaching for my hand. "I'd been watching you all evening, you know. Not because you were Nathan's ex-wife, but because you had this presence. Even in your sadness, you carried yourself with dignity." I squeezed his hand, remembering how surprised I'd been when the CEO of Morrison Enterprises had approached me. I'd seen Michael at company events before, of course, but we'd never spoken beyond polite pleasantries. That night was different. "I was terrified you were going to bring up Nathan," I confessed. "That you'd try to apologize for him, or worse, pity me. But instead, we talked about architecture for 2 hours. Michael smiled. "You absolutely schooled me on Art Deco design elements. Well, you did ask about my opinion on the venue's restoration." The memory warmed me more than the wine. "I couldn't believe you actually listened. Most people's eyes glaze over when I start talking about architectural periods." Michael set down his glass and pulled me closer. "I loved how passionate you were. Still are. It was like watching someone come alive. That's when I knew I wanted to know everything about you. Our courtship had been careful, private. Weekly coffee meetings to discuss potential collaboration between my design firm and Morrison Enterprises turned into dinner dates. Long phone calls about business evolved into deeper conversations about life, dreams, and healing. Remember our first kiss?" I asked, leaning into him. "Outside that little Italian restaurant in the rain," he nodded. "You were worried about what people would think, the CEO dating an employee's ex-wife." I laughed softly. I was more worried about what it meant for me. Opening up again, risking my heart. "But you were so patient. You were worth the wait," Michael said simply. "Every careful step, every private moment. When you suggested we keep our relationship quiet, I understood. You needed time to heal, to build yourself back up without office gossip and drama. The decision to maintain our privacy had been mutual. After the spectacle of my divorce, I'd wanted something that was just ours. Michael, understanding the corporate complications, had agreed. We dated for 8 months before he proposed, and married in a private ceremony 3 months later, with only our closest friends and family present. I still can't believe we managed to keep it secret for a year, I mused. Though Rachel nearly slipped up at last month's board meeting. Speaking of secrets, Michael's tone turned serious. "Are you sure you want to do this? Reveal everything at their engagement party? We could just send our regrets." I sat up, turning to face him. "Do you remember what you said to me the night Nathan promoted Madison to junior partner, right after their relationship went public?" Michael's expression darkened slightly. "I said he was a fool who'd thrown away a diamond for cubic zirconia. And then you told me that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well and being happy." I touched his face gently. "That's what this is about. Yes. Part of me wants to see their faces when they realize that while they were playing their little games, we were building something real. But mostly, I'm tired of hiding how happy you make me. Even though it might make things awkward at the office?" I laughed. "Darling, you're the CEO. If anyone makes things awkward, they can answer to HR." Michael joined in my laughter, but then grew thoughtful. You know, Nathan came to my office yesterday practically preening about the engagement party. He actually had the nerve to say he hoped it wouldn't be uncomfortable for you to attend. And what did you say? I told him I was sure you'd handle it with the same grace you've shown throughout everything else. His blue eyes sparkled. I just didn't mention that you'd be handling it as Mrs. Morrison. I reached for the invitation on the side table, running my fingers over the elaborate script once more. Madison picked the most expensive invitation design from Madison Papers, I noted. She's trying so hard to prove she belongs in their social circle. Unlike someone I know who's already revolutionizing half the luxury hotels in the city with her designs, Michael said proudly. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, reminding me that time was moving forward, always forward. In 2 days, we'd attend that party, and everything would change again. But this time, I wasn't afraid of change. I stood up, pulling Michael with me. Come on, help me pick out your tie for Saturday. It needs to complement my red dress perfectly. The Valentino? His eyes lit up. Nathan is going to have a heart attack when he sees you in that. No, I corrected him, leading him inside. Nathan is going to have a heart attack when he sees me in that, on your arm, wearing your ring. As we walked into our bedroom, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the mirror, my small frame tucked perfectly against his taller one, both of us smiling, both of us whole. 2 years ago, I thought Nathan had broken me beyond repair. Now, I understood that he'd actually set me free. The invitation on the terrace caught the last rays of sunlight, its gold lettering glinting like a promise. Saturday couldn't come soon enough. The morning of the engagement party dawned bright and clear. I stood in my walk-in closet, running my hands over the red Valentino dress, when my phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. You better tell me everything tonight. Everything. I smiled, typing back. Front row seats are reserved for my best friend. Rachel had been my rock through the divorce, the one person who'd seen me at my absolute worst. She'd held me through countless crying sessions, helped me pack up my old life, and celebrated every small victory in building my new one. When I told her about Michael, she'd been cautiously supportive. When we married in secret, she'd been our witness and strongest advocate. Need help getting ready? Her next message read, I make an excellent hype woman. Yes, please. Come over at 4? I set my phone down and walked to the bathroom where my reflection greeted me. The woman staring back had changed so much from the one who'd once tried desperately to be the perfect corporate wife. That Savannah had dyed her hair darker because Nathan preferred it that way, had worn only conservative clothes in muted colors, had dimmed her own light to make her husband shine brighter. The sound of the shower starting pulled me from my thoughts. Michael appeared in the doorway, already holding 2 coffee cups. Morning, beautiful, he said, handing me my cup. Ready for today? I took a sip of the perfectly prepared coffee. He never forgot the extra shot of espresso. You know what's strange? I actually am. I thought I'd be nervous, but I just feel ready. He leaned down to kiss my forehead. That's because you're not doing this for revenge. You're doing it because you're finally ready to stop hiding. When did you get so wise? I teased. But we both knew he was right. This wasn't about hurting Nathan or Madison. It was about claiming our happiness openly. The day passed in a blur of preparations. Rachel arrived at 4, as promised, bringing champagne and her signature enthusiasm. As she helped me with my hair and makeup, I caught her studying me in the mirror. What? I asked, meeting her eyes in the reflection. I was just thinking about how different you look from last year, she said, pinning another curl in place. Not just the outside stuff. Though, girl, you're glowing. But there's something else. You're just you again. Actually, you're more you than I've ever seen. I thought about her words as she worked. The past 2 years had been a journey of rediscovery. After Nathan left, I'd had to relearn who I was without him. It had been terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Starting my own business had given me purpose. Meeting Michael had given me hope. But the real transformation had come from within, from choosing to believe I deserved better, from refusing to let someone else's betrayal define me. Remember what you told me the night Nathan left? I asked Rachel. When I was crying about being replaced by someone younger? Rachel rolled her eyes. I told you he hadn't replaced you. He'd downgraded. And look how right I was. Though I didn't expect you to upgrade quite so spectacularly. She winked. Speaking of your spectacular upgrade, where is your handsome CEO husband? Getting ready in the guest room. He said he wanted the full impact of seeing me ready for the first time. Smart man, Rachel grinned, putting the final touches on my makeup. There, take a look. I turned to the mirror and caught my breath. Rachel had kept the makeup elegant but striking. Smoky eyes that made the green in mine pop, flawless skin with just a hint of flush, and red lips that matched my dress perfectly. My blonde hair fell in soft waves, styled in a way that looked effortlessly sophisticated. Rachel, it's perfect, I whispered. Now for the dress, she said, pulling the Valentino from its garment bag with reverence. I still can't believe you kept this beauty hidden for months. The red dress had been my first major purchase after landing a huge hotel design contract. I'd seen it in the window of Saks and fallen in love with its simple elegance. The way it hugged curves I'd rediscovered at the gym. The dramatic yet tasteful slit. The color that spoke of confidence rather than seeking attention. As Rachel helped me into it, I remembered how Nathan used to choose my outfits for important events, always steering me toward conservative styles that wouldn't overshadow him. The memory no longer stung. A knock at the door made us both turn. Are you decent? Michael called out. Come see for yourself, I answered. The door opened and Michael stepped in, looking devastating in his black tuxedo. He stopped short when he saw me, his eyes widening in a way that made my heart skip. Savannah? He breathed. You look… I know, right? Rachel interrupted proudly. Nathan is going to swallow his tongue. Nathan is going to wish he never let her go, Michael corrected, crossing the room to take my hands. But I'm grateful every day that he did. Rachel made a show of wiping away fake tears. And that's my cue to head out. I'll see you both at the party. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my makeup. Show them what they lost, Savannah. After she left, Michael pulled me close, careful not to wrinkle the dress. You really do look incredible. So do you, I said, straightening his bow tie. Very Nathan Bond. Well, we are about to make quite an entrance. He hesitated. Last chance to back out. We could just stay home, order takeout, watch old movies. I silenced him with a kiss, grateful I'd chosen long-lasting lipstick. Not a chance. I want the world to know I'm Mrs. Morrison. Besides, I added with a smile, I didn't spend 2 hours getting ready to eat takeout. Michael laughed, then grew serious. Whatever happens tonight, know that I'm proud to be your husband, and that you're 10 times the woman Madison will ever be. I touched his face gently. And you're twice the man Nathan could ever hope to be. I glanced at the clock. We should go. Fashionably late is one thing, but we don't want to miss their faces when we walk in. As we headed downstairs, I caught our reflection in the hallway mirror. He tall and distinguished in his tuxedo, me radiant in red, both of us wearing matching smiles. We looked like a power couple, like equals, like partners. The invitation had specified the party was being held at the St. Regis. Ironically, one of the hotels I'd recently redesigned, though Madison didn't know that yet. Another detail that made tonight feel like destiny. In the car, Michael reached over and squeezed my hand. Ready to make an entrance, Mrs. Morrison. I squeezed back, feeling nothing but certainty. More than ready, Mr. Morrison. Let's go show them what real love looks like. The St. Regis looked magical in the evening light, its grand entrance illuminated by elegant sconces I'd personally selected during the renovation. Michael handed the car to the valet, then came around to open my door. As I stepped out, a cool breeze carried the scent of blooming gardenias from the courtyard, another touch I'd added to the hotel's design. Those flowers were an inspired choice, Michael murmured as he offered his arm. Just like the woman who chose them. I smiled, placing my hand in the crook of his elbow. Funny, Madison doesn't know I designed any of this. She just chose the venue because it's the most expensive hotel in the city. The doorman recognized Michael immediately. Good evening, Mr. Morrison, he said with a respectful nod, then added with a knowing smile. Mrs. Morrison. Inside, the grand ballroom sparkled with thousands of tiny lights. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the gathered guests, their elegant attire creating a sea of black and muted colors that made my red dress stand out even more. The sound of classical music mixed with the gentle murmur of conversation and the tinkling of champagne glasses. "They're at the entrance," Michael noted, nodding toward the doorway where Nathan and Madison stood greeting their guests. "Ready?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my wedding ring against my finger. "Ready?" We moved through the crowd, which parted naturally for Michael, a CEO's privilege. I could hear the whispers starting already, see the double takes as people recognized us together. A few of Nathan's colleagues from the legal department actually stopped mid-conversation, their mouths hanging open. Madison saw us first. She was wearing a princess-style white dress that tried too hard to be bridal, her dark hair swept up in an elaborate updo. Her practiced smile froze on her face as she registered who was approaching. Next to her, Nathan was laughing at something a guest had said, completely unaware of the incoming storm. "Nathan Madison." Michael's voice carried just the right amount of authority. "Congratulations." Nathan turned, the laugh still dying on his lips. The moment he saw us, saw me on Michael's arm, all color drained from his face. His eyes darted from my face to Michael's, then down to where my left hand rested on Michael's arm, the distinctive Morrison family ring gleaming on my finger. "Mr. Morrison," he stammered, years of corporate training kicking in. We didn't expect—" "Savannah," Madison cut in, her voice higher than usual. You came. And you brought—" She trailed off, clearly unsure how to process what she was seeing. "My husband," I finished for her, my voice steady and clear. "I hope you don't mind that I brought Michael as my +1. The silence that followed was delicious. Around us, conversations had hushed as people realized something significant was happening. I could see Rachel at a nearby table, barely containing her glee. "Husband?" Madison's voice cracked on the word. Her eyes locked onto my ring, recognition dawning. Everyone in the company knew the Morrison family ring. It had been featured in countless corporate publications. "We've been married for a year now," Michael said smoothly, his hand covering mine where it rested on his arm. "We wanted to keep it private, but when we received your invitation—" He smiled, showing just a hint of steel. "Well, we thought it was time to share our happiness." Nathan looked like he'd been hit by a truck. I knew that look. He was calculating rapidly, realizing that his boss was now married to the woman he'd discarded, the woman he'd assumed would be arriving alone tonight, providing entertainment for his guests with her presumed loneliness. We had no idea," he managed finally. "Congratulations." "Thank you," I replied, genuine warmth in my voice. "And congratulations to you both as well. The hotel looks stunning tonight." I paused, then added with just a touch of sweetness, "Though I might be biased since I designed the renovation." Madison's grip on her champagne glass tightened visibly. What? "Oh, didn't you know?" Michael's tone was innocent. "Savannah's firm handled the entire redesign. Everything from the chandeliers to those lovely gardenia arrangements you chose for tonight. She's become quite the force in luxury hotel design." More murmurs from the gathering crowd. I could see several of Nathan's colleagues looking at me with new respect, while others were clearly trying not to laugh at the irony of the situation. "We should greet our other guests," Madison said stiffly, tugging at Nathan's arm. But Nathan seemed unable to move, still staring at us like we were some sort of mirage. "Of course," I smiled. "We wouldn't want to keep you. Michael, shall we find our table?" As we moved away, I could hear the whispers exploding behind us. One particularly loud voice, belonging to Carol from accounting, who'd always had a flair for drama, carried clearly, "Oh my God, did you see his face?" Michael led me to our table, where Rachel was already seated with her husband Freddie. She immediately raised her champagne glass in a silent toast, her eyes dancing with delight. "That," she whispered as we sat down, "was better than any reality TV show I've ever seen." "Did you see Madison's face when she recognized the ring?" Freddie added, grinning. "I thought she was going to faint." I took the champagne glass Michael offered me, feeling strangely light. There was no anger in me anymore, no desire for revenge or vindication. Instead, I felt something else. Closure. To new beginnings, Michael proposed, raising his glass. And to karma, Rachel added with a wink. As our glasses clinked, I caught Nathan watching us from across the room. He looked lost, like a man who'd just realized he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Madison was beside him, gripping his arm too tightly, her smile now brittle as she tried to maintain her composure while greeting guests. But their reactions didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the man beside me, who'd shown me what real love looked like. What mattered was the life we'd built together, the success I'd found on my own terms, and the strength I'd discovered within myself. The night was just beginning, and I had a feeling it would hold more surprises. But for now, I was content to sit here with my husband, surrounded by true friends, wearing red Valentino and the Morrison family ring, finally free of the past that had once threatened to break me. The party swirled around us like a glittering carousel, but I couldn't help noticing how the dynamics had shifted since our arrival. People who had previously aligned themselves with Madison and Nathan were now finding excuses to stop by our table, offering congratulations and commenting on how wonderful Michael and I looked together. Savannah, darling, Linda Matthews, one of the senior partner's wives who'd ghosted me after the divorce, practically materialized at my elbow. You simply must tell me who does your hair now. And that dress, Valentino, isn't it? It is, I smiled, remembering how she'd once told me I should dress more appropriately for my age at a company Christmas party. Michael has excellent taste in both fashion and women, don't you think? Michael, catching my subtle dig, squeezed my hand under the table. I'd say my taste has improved significantly over the years, he replied smoothly. Savannah's been teaching me about design in all its forms. Linda's eyes darted between us, clearly trying to calculate this new power dynamic. Well, you simply must come to our summer gathering at the lake house. Both of you, of course. We'll check our calendar, I said politely, knowing full well she hadn't invited me to anything in the past 2 years. Though we're quite busy with the Singapore hotel project at the moment. As Linda floated away to spread this new piece of gossip, Rachel leaned in. Is it wrong that I'm enjoying this so much? Because I am thoroughly enjoying this. I watched as Linda immediately joined a group of other society wives, all of them turning to look our way with poorly concealed interest. Across the room, Madison was now clutching her third champagne glass, her perfect updo starting to wilt slightly at the edges. Mrs. Morrison? A young waiter appeared at my elbow. The chef would like to know if you have any dietary restrictions for the main course. Before I could respond, Madison's voice cut across the space between our tables. Why are they asking you about the menu? I planned everything myself. The silence that followed her outburst was palpable. Several heads turned, and I saw Nathan place a restraining hand on her arm. Actually, the waiter looked uncomfortable. Mr. Morrison always has specific dietary requirements noted in our system, and as his wife, I'm fine with whatever's being served. I interrupted gently, saving the poor young man from the awkward situation. Everything smells wonderful. But Madison wasn't done. The champagne had clearly loosened her carefully maintained composure. This is our engagement party, she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Our party. You can't just come in here with your perfect dress and your perfect new life and… Madison. Nathan's voice was sharp. That's enough. I felt Michael tense beside me, ready to intervene, but I placed a calming hand on his arm. This was my moment to handle. Standing up slowly, I walked over to their table. Every eye in the vicinity followed my movement, but for once, I didn't mind being the center of attention. I was no longer the woman who'd been left behind, trying to disappear into the background. Madison, I said quietly, keeping my voice kind but firm. This is your engagement party, and I genuinely came to wish you both well. Michael and I discussed whether we should attend, knowing it might cause exactly this kind of tension. But then I realized something. Continuing to hide our happiness would be letting the past control us, and I'm not that person anymore. Madison stared up at me, mascara slightly smudged at the corners of her eyes. For the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as the younger woman who'd stolen my husband, but as someone desperately trying to prove she belonged in a world she wasn't sure would accept her. You didn't have to wear red, she whispered. and I heard the real fear behind her words. The fear of being overshadowed, outshone. No, I agreed. I didn't have to. Just like you didn't have to invite me. But we both made our choices, didn't we? Nathan was watching this exchange with a strange expression. Part disbelief, part something else I couldn't quite identify. Our eyes met briefly, and in that moment, I saw recognition dawn in his face. He finally understood what he'd thrown away. If you'd like us to leave, we will, I continued. But I think it would cause more gossip than if we all simply enjoyed this beautiful party you've planned. After all, I smiled, genuine warmth in my voice. The St. Regis is lovely this time of year, especially the gardenia arrangements. Something shifted in Madison's expression, a slight softening around the eyes. You really designed all this? Every detail, I nodded, including the crystal chandeliers you chose for your ceremony space. They're beautiful, she admitted quietly. Thank you. I gestured to her engagement ring, a large, ornate piece that couldn't have been more different from the elegant Morrison family ring on my own hand. Just like your ring, it suits you perfectly. Returning to our table, I felt lighter somehow. Michael pulled out my chair, then leaned in to whisper, "That was incredibly gracious of you." "It wasn't grace," I corrected him. "It was freedom. I meant what I said. I'm not that person anymore. The one who needs to prove something, who carries around hurt and anger. That's their burden now." Rachel raised her glass. "To the new Savannah, who, by the way, just showed everyone in this room what real class looks like." As dinner was served, I noticed the atmosphere in the room had shifted again. The whispers had died down, replaced by genuine conversation. Even Madison seemed more relaxed, though she'd switched to water after Nathan's quiet insistence. "You know?" Michael mused, sampling the perfectly cooked beef tenderloin. "I think you just changed the entire dynamic of the company with that little display of magnanimity." "How so?" "People were expecting a scene, a catfight, something to gossip about for months. Instead, you showed them what moving forward with dignity looks like. That's going to make board meetings very interesting." I laughed softly. "Well, as CEO's wife, I suppose I should set a good example. As a successful businesswoman and designer in your own right," he corrected firmly. "You just did." Looking around the ballroom, at the lighting I'd chosen, the floral arrangements I'd designed, the overall ambiance I'd created, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. 2 years ago, I'd thought Nathan leaving me was the end of my story. Instead, it had been the beginning of a much better one. The orchestra started playing again, and Michael stood, offering his hand. "Shall we dance, Mrs. Morrison?" Taking his hand, I rose, the red Valentino dress shimming under the lights of my carefully chosen chandeliers. "Lead the way, Mr. Morrison." As we moved onto the dance floor, other couples joining us, I caught our reflection in the ballroom's mirrors. We moved together perfectly, like we'd been dancing all our lives. In a way, I supposed we had been. We'd just been waiting for the right partner. Later in the evening, I found myself alone on the terrace, taking a moment to breathe in the night air. The garden below was lit with the soft glow of lanterns I'd specifically chosen to create intimate spaces within the hotel's landscape. The music from inside drifted out softly, creating a peaceful counterpoint to the evening's earlier drama. "Your attention to detail is remarkable," a familiar voice said behind me. "I never noticed how the lighting changes the mood out here." I turned to find Nathan standing in the doorway, looking slightly uncomfortable but determined. Part of me had been expecting this conversation all evening. "That's the point," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Good design shouldn't announce itself. It should just make you feel something without you knowing why." He took a few steps forward, maintaining a respectful distance. "Like you did with the whole hotel. Madison, she had no idea when she chose this place. She just wanted the most prestigious venue." "I know." I turned back to look at the gardens, remembering the months of work I'd put into every aspect of the renovation. That's usually how it works with people who are trying too hard to prove something. Nathan was quiet for a moment, and I could feel him struggling with what to say next. "Savannah, don't," I interrupted gently. "Whatever you're about to say, apology, explanation, justification. I don't need to hear it. Not anymore. You're happy, he said. And it wasn't a question. Really happy. With Michael. I am. I finally turned to face him fully. But not just with Michael. I'm happy with myself. That's the difference you're seeing. He nodded slowly, running a hand through his graying hair. A gesture I once knew so well but now seemed like something from a different lifetime. You know, when Madison insisted on inviting you, I thought you'd either not come, or you'd come alone and be miserable? Bitter? A cautionary tale for your guests to whisper about? He had the grace to look ashamed. Something like that. Instead, you're married to my boss and redesigning luxury hotels. You're more than you ever were with me. Because you never let me be more, I said simply. You wanted a wife who would fade into the background, who would make you look good without outshining you. Michael wants a partner who shines as brightly as she can. The door opened again, and Madison appeared, hesitating when she saw us together. She'd clearly been crying and trying to hide it with makeup. Come join us, I said, surprising both them and myself. The view from here is lovely. Madison moved to Nathan's side, and I noticed how she clutched his arm, the same way I used to when I felt insecure. Looking at them now, I felt an unexpected wave of compassion. Madison, I said softly, can I give you some advice? Not as Nathan's ex-wife, but as someone who's been where you are. She nodded, clearly wary but listening. Stop trying so hard to be what you think everyone expects. The invitations, the dress, the venue. You're trying to prove you belong in this world. I know, because I spent 15 years doing the same thing. I gestured to the party inside. All these people whose approval you're seeking, they don't matter. What matters is being true to yourself. But everyone thinks I'm just the secretary who... She trailed off, biting her lip. Who fell in love with her boss? I finished for her. That story only has power if you let it define you. Trust me, I know something about letting other people's stories define you. Nathan was watching this exchange with a mixture of confusion and amazement. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I cut him off. I'm choosing to. Because holding on to anger and resentment only hurts ourselves. I turned back to Madison. You want to prove them wrong? Stop trying to be the perfect society wife and figure out who you really are. That's what I did. The sound of footsteps made us all turn. Michael was approaching, his face concerned until he saw the peaceful nature of our gathering. Everything okay out here? He asked, coming to stand beside me. Everything's fine, I assured him, leaning into his warmth. We were just discussing the importance of being authentic. Michael's arm slid around my waist naturally, and I felt him relax. The speeches are about to start. Madison, I believe your father is looking for you. Madison nodded, then paused before leaving. Savannah, thank you. For what you said earlier, and just now, I'm sorry for how I acted. I know, I said simply. Go enjoy your party. You've planned a beautiful evening. As they left, Michael turned to me with a questioning look. Want to tell me what that was all about? I watched Nathan and Madison make their way back inside, noting how she walked a little straighter now, her movements less artificial. Just passing on some hard-earned wisdom about not letting your past define your future. You never cease to amaze me, Michael said, pulling me closer. Most people would have used this night for revenge. You turned it into a teaching moment. Revenge is exhausting, I mused, remembering how much energy I'd once spent on being angry. Growth is much more satisfying. The sound of clinking glasses floated out from the ballroom. The speeches were beginning, but I lingered for a moment more, looking up at the stars visible beyond the hotel's elegant lighting. You know, I said thoughtfully, when I was designing this terrace, I wanted it to be a place where people could step away from whatever was happening inside and find a moment of peace. I never imagined I'd be using it for exactly that purpose at my ex-husband's engagement party. Michael laughed softly. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. He held out his hand. Shall we go back in? I believe I promised you another dance. Taking his hand, I took one last look at the garden below. Lead the way, Mr. Morrison. But first, I reached up and kissed him. Long and sweet, under the stars and the carefully designed lighting that made everyone look their best selves. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living your best life and helping others find their way to doing the same. As the evening drew to a close, the energy in the ballroom had shifted dramatically from the tense atmosphere of our arrival. The speeches had been given, the champagne had flowed, and somewhere along the way, what had started as a potential social disaster had transformed into something unexpectedly meaningful. I was sitting at our table, watching Michael chat with some board members across the room, when Rachel slid into the chair beside me. "Okay, spill," she demanded, keeping her voice low. "What really happened out on that terrace with Nathan and Madison? Because she came back looking like a different person, and he hasn't been able to take his eyes off you all night. But not in the way he used to." I sipped my champagne, considering how to explain it. I think we all finally let go of who we were trying to be and started seeing who we actually are. "Deep," Rachel commented, then grinned. "But seriously, did you eviscerate them with that quiet, elegant way you have? Because if so, I need details." Actually, I gave Madison advice about being authentic and not letting other people's expectations define her. Rachel stared at me for a long moment. "Who are you and what have you done with my bitter, angry friend from 2 years ago?" "She grew up," I smiled, and realized that holding on to anger was keeping her from growing into who she was meant to be. "Look at you, all wise and evolved," Rachel teased, but her eyes were soft with understanding. "You know, when you first told me about Michael, I was worried. I thought maybe you were rushing into something to prove you were over Nathan. I remember. You gave me quite the lecture about rebound relationships, and I have never been happier to be wrong." Rachel glanced across the room where Michael was now making his way back to us. "The way he looks at you, it's like you're the only person in the room." "It's how he's always looked at me," I said softly. Even when I couldn't see my own worth, he could. Michael reached our table, extending his hand to me. "Last dance of the night, Mrs. Morrison. Unless you're too tired." "Never too tired to dance with you," I replied, taking his hand and standing. As we moved onto the dance floor, I noticed other couples joining us. Nathan and Madison were among them, but the awkward tension from earlier had dissipated. Madison caught my eye and gave a small, genuine smile, the first real one I'd seen from her all evening. "You've created quite a stir tonight," Michael murmured as we swayed to the music. "I've had 3 board members tell me how impressed they are with your hotel designs, and 2 more asking if you'd consider consulting on their personal properties. Funny how they never noticed my work until they knew I was Mrs. Morrison," I observed, but without bitterness. "Actually," Michael corrected, "they never noticed because you were hiding your light. Tonight you finally let yourself shine." I thought about that as we danced. He was right. For years, I'd dimmed myself to make Nathan comfortable. Then, after the divorce, I'd worked hard but stayed in the background, afraid of drawing attention. Even my relationship with Michael had been kept private, partly out of professional courtesy, but also, I realized now, because part of me was still hiding. "Thank you," I said suddenly. "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me. Even when I was trying so hard not to be seen." Michael's arms tightened around me slightly. "I should be thanking you. Do you know what Anderson just told me?" "What?" "He said I'm a different CEO since we got married. More approachable, more in tune with the human side of business. He's right. You taught me that success isn't just about power or profits. It's about understanding people, about creating spaces and relationships that bring out the best in others." The music was winding down, the last notes of the evening floating through the air. Around us, guests were beginning to gather their things, saying their goodbyes. I saw Rachel and Freddie waiting by our table, ready to share a car home as planned. "Ready to go?" Michael asked. "Almost." I glanced toward where Nathan and Madison stood near the exit, saying goodbye to guests. "Give me one moment." Michael nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I'll get our coats." I walked over to the engaged couple, noting how Madison's posture had relaxed over the evening, how she was no longer clinging to Nathan quite so desperately. "Thank you for having us," I said sincerely. "Thank you for coming," Madison replied, and I could tell she meant it. "And for everything else." Nathan cleared his throat. "Emily, what you said earlier. about being true to yourself. You were right. About all of it. I know, I said simply. Then, surprising myself again, I added, if you ever want to talk, Madison, about navigating this world or just anything, well, you know where to find me. Her eyes widened slightly, then softened with gratitude. I might take you up on that. Walking back to where Michael waited with our coats, I felt a profound sense of closure. The woman who had received that invitation days ago, planning to make a statement, had wanted to prove something. The woman walking away now had nothing left to prove. Everything okay? Michael asked as he helped me into my coat. I looked up at him. This man who had helped me find myself again, who had shown me what real partnership looked like. Everything is perfect. Rachel and Freddie were waiting by the door. So, Rachel grinned, pancakes at our place to dissect every single moment of this evening? Actually, I looked at Michael, who nodded with a smile. I think we're just going to head home. Some moments don't need dissecting. As we walked out into the night air, the scent of gardenias following us, I realized something profound. The revenge I'd initially wanted, making Nathan regret his choices, making Madison feel insecure, would have kept me tethered to the past. Instead, I'd found something far more powerful, the ability to wish them well and mean it, because their choices had led me to exactly where I was meant to be. You're smiling, Michael observed as we waited for the valet. I'm happy, I said simply. Not because of anything that happened in there, but because I finally understand. The best revenge really is living well. And we do, don't we? We do, he agreed, pulling me close against the night's chill. And this is just the beginning. The city lights sparkled like scattered diamonds as Michael drove us home, the quiet hum of the car creating a cocoon of peace after the emotionally charged evening. I had slipped off my heels, letting my feet rest after hours of dancing, and was watching the familiar streets pass by with new eyes. Penny, for your thoughts? Michael asked, reaching over to take my hand. I was just thinking about how different everything looks at night, I mused. How the same streets we drive every day transform when the lights change. Kind of like what happened tonight. How so? I turned to study his profile, strong and steady in the passing streetlights. When I first got that invitation, I saw it as a chance to show them what they'd lost. But somehow, it became about showing everyone, including myself, what I'd found instead. Michael squeezed my hand. I noticed something interesting tonight, he said thoughtfully. After your conversation with Madison on the terrace, she stopped trying to act like what she thought a future partner's wife should be, started actually engaging with people instead of just performing for them. Sometimes we need someone to give us permission to be ourselves, I replied, remembering my own journey. I spent so many years trying to fit into the role of Nathan's wife that I forgot who Savannah was. We stopped at a red light, and Michael turned to look at me fully. And who is Savannah? She's a woman who designs spaces that make people feel something, who rebuilt herself from scratch and found she liked the real version better than the carefully constructed one, who married her second husband not because she needed him, but because they make each other better. I smiled. And who looks damn good in red Valentino. The light turned green, and Michael chuckled as we moved forward. Can't argue with any of that, though I have to admit, watching Nathan realize exactly what he'd thrown away was a particularly satisfying moment. It wasn't about him anymore, I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. When I saw him looking at me tonight, I realized he wasn't seeing what he'd lost. He was seeing who I'd always been, who he'd never let me be. The same way Madison's trying so hard to be something she's not, because she thinks that's what he wants. Do you think they'll make it? I thought about Madison's transformation over the evening, how she'd slowly begun to relax into herself. Maybe. If she finds her own strength, and if he learns to love someone for who they are rather than who he wants them to be. But that's their journey now, not ours. We turned onto our street, the familiar sight of our home coming into view. The porch light was on. We always left it burning when we went out, a warm welcome home. Michael pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine, but neither of us moved to get out right away. You know, he said, when I first met you at that gala, you were standing alone, looking like you were carrying the weight of the world. But there was something about you, this undercurrent of strength that you maybe didn't even know you had. I didn't, I admitted. I thought being left had broken me. I didn't realize it had actually set me free. Michael got out and came around to open my door, offering his hand with the same gallantry he'd shown all evening. As I stepped out, still barefoot and holding my heels, a warm summer breeze ruffled my dress. "Wait," he said suddenly, pulling out his phone. "Stay just like that." "Like what?" "Just perfect," he murmured, taking a photo. He showed it to me. Somehow he'd captured me in motion, the red dress catching the breeze, my hair slightly tousled, barefoot and laughing. I looked utterly unself-conscious, completely myself. "That's how I see you," he said softly. "Not just tonight in the Valentino, but every day. Completely, authentically Savannah." We walked to the front door together, and I paused before going in, looking up at our home. You know what I love about this house? It's the first place that was truly mine. I bought it during the divorce, decorated it exactly how I wanted. No compromise, no trying to please anyone else's taste. Just pure Savannah. "And then you let me move in and didn't even make me get rid of my old leather recliner." Michael grinned. "Well, everyone needs one ugly comfort chair," I teased, then grew serious. "But that's what real love is, isn't it? Making space for each other's authentic selves, ugly chairs and all." Inside, I dropped my heels by the door and padded into the kitchen, pulling 2 water glasses from the cabinet. Michael loosened his bow tie and joined me, accepting the water gratefully. "So," he said, "was it everything you hoped it would be? Making your grand revelation at their engagement party?" I considered the question carefully. It was better than what I'd hoped for, because what I'd hoped for was small. I wanted to show them that they hadn't broken me. Instead, I got to show myself that I'm not just unbroken. I'm stronger and more whole than I've ever been. Michael set down his glass and pulled me into his arms. "Dance with me?" "There's no music," I pointed out. "We don't need any." So we danced in our kitchen, me barefoot in my red dress, him in his loosened bow tie, swaying to the quiet rhythm of our shared heartbeats. Through the window, I could see the garden I'd planted when I first moved in, now fuller, more established, blooming in ways I hadn't expected when I first put those seeds in the ground. "Thank you," I whispered into Michael's chest. "For what?" "For letting me figure out who I am. For not trying to fix me or shape me into something else. For dancing with me in the kitchen at midnight." He pressed a kiss to my hair. "Thank you for letting me be part of your story. Not as the hero who saved you, but as the lucky man who gets to watch you shine." The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through our bedroom windows and the smell of coffee wafting up from the kitchen. The red Valentino dress hung on the closet door, a vibrant reminder of the previous night's events. As I pulled on my favorite silk robe, my phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from Madison. "I hope it's not too early," the message read. "I just wanted to thank you again for last night, for everything. I've been thinking a lot about what you said about being authentic. Would you maybe want to get coffee sometime?" I stared at the message, feeling the last piece of something shift into place. 2 years ago, I would have deleted the message immediately. A year ago, I might have seen it as an attempt at manipulation. Now, I recognized it for what it was, a genuine reach for connection. "I'd like that," I typed back. "There's a lovely little cafe next to my design studio. Tuesday?" Her response was immediate. Tuesday would be perfect. Smiling, I headed downstairs to find Michael in the kitchen, already dressed for his morning run, but waiting for me with coffee. The Sunday paper was spread across our kitchen island, and my reading glasses were set next to my favorite mug. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, pulling me in for a kiss. "Sleep well?" "Like a rock," I admitted, settling onto a bar stool and reaching for the coffee. Though I had the strangest dream about designing a hotel made entirely of glass and moonlight. "Sounds like your next big project," he teased, then grew serious. "You know, I got an interesting email this morning from Nathan." My hand paused halfway to my coffee mug. "Oh?" "He's requesting a transfer to our London office. Says he and Madison need a fresh start, somewhere they can both figure out who they are away from. Well, everything here." I absorbed this information, surprised by my lack of surprise. That actually makes sense. Sometimes you need to leave everything behind to find yourself. I gave him a meaningful look. I did. You never left, he pointed out. Not physically, I agreed. But I had to leave behind who I thought I was supposed to be to discover who I actually am. Michael leaned against the counter, studying me with those perceptive blue eyes. And who are you, Savannah Morrison? I'm a woman who designs spaces that tell stories, who found love when she wasn't looking for it, who learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened, but about freeing yourself from the weight of it. I took a sip of my coffee, perfectly prepared as always. And I'm someone who's actually grateful for everything that happened, because it led me here. Even the painful parts? Especially those, I nodded. Without them, I might have spent my whole life being Nathan's wife instead of becoming Savannah. My phone buzzed again. Rachel this time, sending a series of photos from last night. There we were dancing, laughing with friends, sharing quiet moments in the corner. In every shot, we looked completely in our element, utterly ourselves. We make a handsome couple, Michael observed, looking over my shoulder. We make a real couple, I corrected. That's better than handsome. He was quiet for a moment, then said, You know, when you first agreed to have dinner with me, I was terrified. This was new. You were? Here was this amazing woman who'd been through hell, but somehow came out stronger, who talked about architecture like it was poetry and looked at the world like it was full of possibilities instead of limitations. I kept thinking, what could I possibly offer her that she hasn't already found within herself? I stood up and wrapped my arms around him. You offered me the freedom to be myself. Do you know how rare that is? Through the kitchen window, I could see our garden coming alive in the morning sun. The rose bush I'd planted last spring was finally blooming, its red flowers a perfect match for last night's dress. A pair of cardinals flitted among the branches, the female as brightly colored as her mate, neither overshadowing the other. I should get going on my run, Michael said reluctantly. Wait, I said, suddenly inspired. Come with me first. I want to show you something. I led him to my home office, where my drafting table stood by the window. Pinned to the wall were the preliminary sketches for my next project, a boutique hotel in Singapore that would be my biggest commission yet. I've been keeping these under wraps until I was sure, I explained, unveiling the central concept drawing. But after last night, I know it's right. Michael studied the drawings, his eyes widening as he took in the innovative design. The hotel was designed in a series of interconnected circles, each one flowing into the next like ripples in a pond. The central courtyard featured a garden that spiraled upward, integrating nature with architecture in a way I'd never attempted before. Savannah, he breathed, this is incredible. It's different from anything I've done before, I admitted. More daring. The old me would have been too scared to even propose it. But now, I gestured to the designs. Now I know that the only way to create something meaningful is to be brave enough to be different. Michael pulled me close, both of us looking at the drawings that represented my future. Our future. When do you present it to the clients? Next week. And yes, I'm going to wear the red dress. He laughed, then grew serious. You know, a lot of people would have used last night to get revenge, to hurt those who hurt them. Instead, you used it to set everyone free. Yourself, Nathan, Madison, even me. How did I set you free? By showing me that real love isn't about fitting someone into your life. It's about creating a life that's big enough for both people to grow. I looked around my office, at the dreams I'd drawn, the awards I'd earned, the photos of Michael and me at various project sites. Each piece was a testament to the woman I'd become, the life we'd built together. You know what I realized last night? I said, turning to face him. The invitation that was meant to remind me of my greatest loss actually showed me my biggest win. Not finding you, though that's pretty high on the list. I smiled, but finding myself. Everything else, the success, the happiness, the love, it all came from that. Michael kissed me softly. Speaking of success, don't forget we have that charity gala next month, the one where we met. How could I forget? Though this time I won't be planning my escape route. No, he agreed. This time you'll be the guest of honor, the designer everyone wants to meet. I thought about that first gala, how lost and broken I'd felt, how I'd stood by that fountain, planning to slip away early when a kind man with blue eyes had offered me champagne and conversation. I couldn't have known then that he'd offer me something far more valuable, the space to become myself. "You better get to your run," I said, pushing him gently toward the door. "I have some designs to refine." As he left, I sat down at my drafting table, picking up my favorite pencil. Outside, the morning sun painted everything in shades of possibility. I thought about Madison, about our upcoming coffee date, about the chance to help another woman find her authentic self. I thought about Nathan and his transfer request, about the courage it takes to admit you need a fresh start. But mostly, I thought about the incredible journey that had brought me here, to this moment, this life, this version of myself. The red dress still hung in my closet, but it was no longer a weapon of revenge. Instead, it had become a symbol of something far more powerful, the strength that comes from being utterly, unabashedly yourself. I bent over my drafting table, pencil moving across paper, creating spaces for other people's stories to unfold. And in the quiet of the morning, surrounded by the life I'd built, I smiled. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming exactly who you were always meant to be.